Well, all right. Looks like we're live here today, and I have some good news. And the good news is I have a nice cold Zevia. Actually, the good news is I'm using a new browser for Streamyard, and it's allowed me to interface my microphone. So for you folks who were lovingly nudging me to take care of my audio, this should help. So currently, I'm using Firefox because for whatever reason, Google StreamYard was not allowing me to use my better microphone. So that's a Mercury retrograde victory, right? And look who's here. Speaking of Mercury retrograde victories, it's my little burrito cat, the Miss Peachy. She's hanging out with us today. Getting a little bit of a late start too. I mean, this is not Excuse City, but I was trying to come up with a good thumbnail on the AI side and wasn't really giving me good Aussies or good Terrys, which is Hulk Hogan's name, Terry Bolleo. And you got to make do with what you get sometimes with artificial intelligence. So anyway, welcome to the show. I don't think we're going to have a marathon, but there's plenty to talk about. And the two topics that I've tabled are the end of the age of icons, and then the other topic, which I think is worth exploring, is what's happening with Candace Owens and this lawsuit with Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel Macron. And there are a number of people who think she's going to lose. Robert Barnes, who's a big friend, or not friend, but somebody that Charlie likes. He's a Viva Barnes guy. He thinks that she's going to lose. Keith Woods thinks that she's going to lose. You know, the court, the case was filed in Delaware. So we know that Delaware is number one, basically an assemblage of P.O. boxes. Really, that's what it is. It's not a very big state. It does have a college, the Delaware Blue Hens, but it's been set up for corporations. I mean, they just got a bunch of P.O. boxes there, right? I mean, theoretically. But I've heard that the judges are pretty liberal. So is it the best place for Candace Owens to have her case heard? I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be interesting though. And I have some thoughts on that. We'll come back to the Candace Owens thing in a little bit. But first, let's check in with you. And we'll see who's here in chat. And then we'll get into the end of the age of icons. It is upon us. And it is the passing of a time. It is the passing of an era. And the people who are the placeholders of the memory for those icons, well, they're still around. But even those people are starting to make their exodus off this world. All right, who do we have here? There's a man, Michael, DJMC. PB. Hi, PB. Sun Tzu. And then we have Susan. That was the name of my first wife, Susan. It's the only Susan I ever dated. Josie's Jazzy Junk. Ozzy was Hulk's Grim Reaper. I don't know. I found this video footage of Hulk Hogan, and I think he got back together with his wife. I could be wrong. He got back together with his wife, and they were being baptized. Maybe about a year ago, something like that. Why do people always hold their noses when they get baptized? I don't understand that. Is it to make sure that the evil spirits don't come in when you get baptized? Why can't people just go in the water? Because, when you go in the water, all you got to do is Clearwater, Florida. Maybe it's the Scientologists. The Scientologists are trying to call me. Maybe I'm on a list with the Scientologists. I mean, when you go underwater, don't you just blow the oxygen out of your nose? When you're going like 8 or 9 inches deep. I mean, I don't get this. You guys do this when you're underwater? Or is that like a baptism thing? Oh, it's Kelly. It's Kelly from Clearwater. Maybe it's a baptism thing because you don't want the evil spirits to get in. That's what I think. Because they come in through the ears. Maybe. But maybe you'd have to listen to Ozzy Osbourne for the evil spirits to get into the ears. It's really fascinating. I mean, all these people are like, he wasn't a Satanist. He was a Christian. He was a good Christian. And people are leaving me all these lyrics. And frankly, I could care less. Like, why do you have to? It's like, just because I wasn't really moved by the Ozzy show. When I mean the Ozzy show, I'm talking about like the concerts and Ozfest. I mean, it's not my thing. This wasn't my thing. And it's like, oh, yeah, I get it. But people take it personally. It's like they have to defend their icons. And even Jack Posobiec was talking about, oh, he was a Christian. He was really Christian. Do you really know? Do you really know these people? I mean, the only way you would know if Ozzy Osbourne was truly Christian is if you sat down next to him and prayed with him and discussed verses of the Bible. Then you would know, more than likely, he was a Christian. But all these people that were... Now, this is my son. I have to get this one. I apologize. It'll be my earbuds. Hold on. Hey, what's up, man? So they just take it there, I think, and get the box. I mean, I don't know if they can do for cheaper or not, but at this point, does price really matter? That's fair. Go do it. Shoot me a JPEG. Thanks. Love you. Bye. Sorry about that. I left a pair of my reading glasses in the car that I gave to my son 2 weeks ago. And I'm trying to get him to send them back. And he was trying to figure out which way would be the cheaper way to get them to me. And I'm like, Are we really having a conversation about which way would be cheaper? I just gave you a $7,000 car. Go spend a few extra dollars to get me those glasses. I bring it up. He says, fair enough. I'm like, fuck yeah, it's fair enough. Oh, kids, don't you just love them? Anyway, I just don't, like people were so adamant that he was a good guy, he was a sweet guy, he never cheated on Sharon, he was a Christian. You don't have to sell it to me. You don't have to sell his image to me so you can feel better about his passing and try to ameliorate my judgment. I'm not really judging him. I just didn't find it very interesting. It wasn't very interesting music or scene. And for a lot of people, I mean, he meant something to them. I just he wasn't my messenger. Let's put it that way. But it's all ending now, isn't it? Supposedly Phil Collins is in hospice. And he's been looking terrible for the last couple of years. He can barely walk. So Phil's on his way out. That'll be probably the next person you hear about, be Phil Collins. And then it'll just be nonstop Genesis for weeks and weeks on end. I was not a huge Phil Collins fan. I actually thought he was a pretty good singer. And when he had to step in the breach for, I believe it was Trick of the Tail, which was the first post-Peter Gabriel Genesis record, I thought they were pretty good. I thought Phil sang well. He didn't sound too different than Peter Gabriel. I mean, I thought, pretty good transition. And then they just become these mega pop stars of the 80s and the 90s. But I never really found Phil all that interesting either. How do you guys feel about it? How do you feel? I mean, we're in the passing of the age of icons, stars, Pluto and Leo, right? They're dimming. They're dying. They're going dark. Who else do we have this week? Chuck Mangione. Chuck Mangione. And I always liked him, He always seemed like he was really happy. And he had a really good vibe. He was always laughing. Whenever I'd see him on like a talk show like Mike Douglas or Merv Griffin or China, he always seemed high. Maybe that's why he was happy. He always seemed high. And his music was, kind of uplifting. I like Chuck Mangione. I don't own any of his albums, but I'm sure if I put one on, I probably wouldn't take it off. And I'd probably be happier after I listened to it. So Ozzy and Chuck Mangione are Sagittarians. Hulk Hogan, of course, he's a Leo. And Malcolm Jamaal Warner, who I guess he drowned, about a week ago, Cosby Kid, a little bit different. Those other three guys, they're all boomers, right? Malcolm Jamaal Warner was 50, so he's like a Gen Xer. He's gone. He was a Leo. So we have two Leos and then two Sagittarians who passed. I have a pretty popular little meme going on YouTube. I said Twitter. And here, I'll show it. I don't know if I can do it. Let me see. Because I know a lot of you aren't on Twitter. So you don't get to see some of my better work. This was right here. Let's see if I can do this. Select window screen. Okay. Google Chrome. Let's do that. I'd like to record this computer screen. I don't want you to record the screen. Just allow. Just allow. Okay. So this is clearly a. Did I do this? This is one of the things when you do a new browser. It is not always one-to-one. Let me see if I can try this. Well, how about that? How about them apples? I'm not sure that's going to work either. This goes way back. Anyway, the original thing was, you'd have to see it. And then who else passed away? George Cuymans. George Cuymans, I believe that's his name. And he is, or was, the guitarist and vocalist for Golden Earring. And he was born on 3/11/1948 in the Hague, Netherlands. I wouldn't call him necessarily an icon. I mean, you knew the song, right? Great song. By the way, Radar Love Live is it is an amazing live recording. And then one of his children is named Kid Cuymans, Kid, Kid Cuymans. I don't know what he does. He is a senior system engineer at Sagika NV. It's a different one. I don't know if that's him, but he left a kid named Kid behind. But yet another icon, not quite, but if you enjoyed Golden Earring, Radar Love, a badass tune. And then what about 2 weeks ago, we had Michael Madsen from Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill. Michael Madsen, he checked out as well. Boy, he was looking hard. And I heard right around the same time that Mickey Rourke was on I'll tell you who else is on his way out is Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is having a very, very difficult time. Very difficult time. Like he's lost all ability to communicate. He can barely walk. I mean, he doesn't have it, but it sounds and feels like he has ALS. So there's another icon. He's on the way out. It's only a matter of time before Jack Nicholson taps out. I can tell you that right now. Jack Nicholson is going to have an interesting effect on people when he when he taps out. Like he hasn't been to a Laker game in what 2 years or 3 years or something like that. Like he won't even come out in public anymore. He's done. And I think it's interesting that we're coming into this is officially an executive order now where Trump is like, we're not going to allow any homeless in America. We're going to build back the asylums. Is that totally official? I mean, I've heard this over the last 24 hours. And it would be interesting if that reality takes place and Jack Nicholson passes away because of his connection to the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So I was texting William Ramsey earlier today, and he's going to come on the show in a couple of weeks. And we're going to talk about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Kesey and Nicholson. And I think it'll be timely. You know, I know a lot of you guys have gone down the Tartarian rabbit hole. And when you do, one of the things inevitably that you run into is the asylums. And it's like, holy shit, you know, why did they have all of these really significant, big asylums around for a populace that didn't really warrant those numbers? And this is one of the conundrums that has come up with this whole idea of the reset. It's like, why did they need these places? Were there more people here than we thought there were? Were they already pre-existing structures and they just retrofitted them because they needed to put people in a place where they had to deal with their denial of a particular reality? Is really that where it all started, right? I mean, maybe we can find some of these things. Let me get my new browser here. Let's see. I got that Chuck Mangione song in my head. All right, let's see if we get some good images here. You don't always get them with the run-of-the-mill browsers. And unfortunately, DuckDuckGo has... so here we go. There's some here. Let's do this. Yes. What are we? Brave? Firefox. I gotta go. Try this. No, it can't. See, this is a problem when using. Hold on. Yeah. For whatever reason, Firefox Brave doesn't interface with Shrimp. Hey, but I get to use the microphone. But you guys know what I'm talking about, right? They had these oversized buildings. They were considered to be asylums. And they had to put people somewhere because there were, if we indulge in this idea of a reset, like there was a world that was, it was almost like 80 BC, right? Or 80. It was almost like that. There was there was a pre-reset world, and then there was a post-reset world. And it's all taking place in the mid 1800s, all over the world, all the great migrations, all that stuff, mid 1800s. And that's when you have the gold rush in California. I mean, all these things start to come up. And then, boom, there's all these asylums. Well, why were all these asylums there? Where were the people that would populate these asylums? So my sense is that that's where they put the people who were not going along with the program. They did not want people who had a previous memory of what the place that they were in was versus what it was going to become. Now, I don't know what happens to those people. I don't know if they get taken out, if they get memory wiped. I don't know what happens to them. If they get reintroduced into the population, don't know. All I know is that there's an inordinate amount of these asylums, big for the amount of people that were here. So if we look at it from that perspective, is there any wonder why we're mad in some ways, right? Like if that's really a part of our past and we've just been told to forget about it, or it is this kind of large chunk of missing time, how does that not affect us, right? How does it not affect the fact that somewhere deep down inside, we know that the world is a lie? And you could look at it from a spiritual perspective, that it's all Maya, or you look around with all the political bullshit and just go lie, 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 lie. But maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe it's deeper in the sense that either through our gene pool or some kind of collective memory, we knew that there was a different kind of world. And it was a world that was, in some ways, more advanced than this one, if you want to go with the Tartarian theme. And maybe that's at the root of all this, that there is this this void, and we don't know what it is. We can't squarely put our finger on it, but we know something's wrong. We know something's missing. We're not being told everything. And maybe this is really what it is. Maybe this is the version of the fall in some ways. And that at a deep psychic level, we're, all slightly askew because there's a chunk of our past that is unaccounted for. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I've never really thought about this in this way before, but it kind of makes sense, right? It kind of makes sense because I think everybody is born into this world with a missing piece. Whatever, like, and some people have more missing pieces than others, but a missing piece. Most people feel like something isn't right? Like there's something that clearly we're not being told. And maybe this is just that original point. And it's not that far away in our recent memory. So here we go. Here come the asylums. And it's ostensibly to get the people off the streets. Well, what if it's for more than that? What if, again, when did we, to me, this is really fascinating. The Tartarian stuff comes a little bit before Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset, but not that far, right? People are really starting to talk about Tartaria in a much more concentrated fashion right around 2018, I think. 2018, 2019, it's starting to become part of the journey, right? And then in 2020, we have Klaus Schwab, and he's talking about the Great Reset. And we've just had basically like 2 years of deeper indoctrination into Tartaria. And what is the word that they use? Reset. So we're just coming into this idea of a reset or a Great Reset. And now it's being reintroduced through the World Economic Forum, Davos, Klaus Schwab, you'll owe nothing to be happy. That's all reset language. So the two seem to be at least synced up, right? Like coming into our vocabulary right around the same time. And now you've got Trump doing this other thing with these new asylums. And have we ruled out the possibility of a Great Reset? I mean, Klaus Schwab is not banging the drum anymore, but nobody told me it wasn't on the table anymore. They're still meeting, they're still going forward. They still want to deploy their centralized systems, much of it based on climate change, carbon credits, all that shit, right? So nobody's really said it's not over. It's just that it's gone kind of dark, undercover. Now, would Donald Trump like to lead the Great Reset? Sure, absolutely. Would he like the United States to bang the marching drum for the Great Reset, as long as the United States gets to be the one banging the drum? Sure, why not? So here we go. We're having this discussion on asylums and the reintroduction of the homeless to them. And I know that Trump knows it's not that easy. Like, it's not just a matter of let's get them off the streets and let's get them into shelters and let's deal with them. These are very deep problems, and each person is going to have something that is going to keep them from reintegration. And let's be honest with you. Let's have an honest moment, honest conversation. If you were somebody who somehow checked out, slipped through the cracks, whatever, would you want to come back into this world as we know it? I don't know. I mean, ultimately, I think that would be the path to wholeness and individuation. So I would never, ever discourage anybody from doing that. But at the same time, it's like, you really want me to become conscious and aware and come back into this place? And don't get me wrong, there's beautiful people and, there's some deeply profound and spiritual things that are still here. But by and large, there's a reason why a lot of those people fell through the cracks. Because they didn't like it. They didn't like it. There was for whatever reason, right? Bad relationships, bad family, bad jobs, bad decisions, bad drugs. It's a rejection. It's a rejection of the system. So now it's like, okay, well, let's make you better, and then let's bring you back into the system. It seems a little mad to me, to be honest with you. But that's where we are, right? We're going to, and I do think it's important to get people off the streets. I just hope that they have the right resources and the right services available to them so that they can actually, find their way back into their heart and their sanity. What does it mean to lose these people that we have associated and in some cases looked up to for a long period of time? I remember for me, it was probably something around the early 2000s, 2004, 2005. I still had a bit of this idea that there were culture heroes. And like, oh, this person is really good. I align with their values. I think that it can be a force for good in the world. And yeah, I'm down. And then invariably, I'd be shown that that wasn't really always the case. Be like, oh, really? Really? They're doing this? They're involved with this? And they just started to drop like flies, one by one by one. And I remember, I used to listen to Alex Jones, and a long time ago, I thought, well, this guy's kind of cool. I can relate to him. And I knew about him, right? I was listening to him. And then he did this thing, and I know it was a stunt. It was a total stunt. And I realized, you motherfucker, you just played a bunch of people. You set this whole thing up. You came in like wider, you're going to clean it up. And you created the whole thing. If you know what I'm talking about, there was a small town, I believe in Montana, and they had been convinced that if they built a county jail, that they could get enough inmates in there, and of course they get contracts to receive money for the inmates. So they're actually looking at this jail as like a county prison or something like that, as a way to make money. And that was not happening. Not enough people were getting arrested. So this small little prison, very large jail sitting around. And some quote unquote foreign entity came in and bought the contract for it to run it. And I remember tracking this on Alex Jones. I'm thinking, wow, man, this is really weird. Why is a foreign government coming in and running this like county prison jail in Montana? And then all of a sudden, Alex Jones goes there to go confront them. And then I realized this is all staged. He did the whole thing. Like, he wasn't involved on the county side, but I would not be surprised if he was involved on the buyer side, or having it set up so the people that would come in and run the jail, like that he was in with them, because they just seemed like complete caricatures. They didn't even seem like real people. And then he went up there and saved the day or whatever. I'm like, he's a phony. Alex Jones is a phony. And this was around, I think, 2010 maybe. And it was in the beginning, right around 2004, 2005, I started reading Inside the Lore, Strange Tales from the Canyon. I started reading all that stuff. Not that those guys were like culture heroes or anything, but it's like, okay, well, if we have to sacrifice our idols so that we can live closer to the truth, I don't really have a problem with that. And that just became more of a steady practice, because I don't think it's healthy to do that. And as we look at these people, and they're huge. I mean, literally, Ozzy Osbourne is larger than life. He's like a brand. He's a brand. In fact, you just say Ozzy, right, or Oz, and people know exactly who you're talking about, what you're talking about. It's like, he's like a demigod, right, in the pantheon of pop culture. And it's the same thing with Hulk Hogan. Hulk, the Hulkster, right? Same thing. They're like archetypes. They're like modern myths, and the modern myths are passing away. And I think it's a good thing. you know, they're both Pluto and Leo, so they're both on the boomer side, and I'm not cheering on the demise of the boomers, but there is something healthy about not having the huge shadow of this other generation just kind of cast over you. So I think ultimately, we have YouTube, we have all these things to remember these people. I think it's a good thing. Like if you still want to tap into them, it's still a good thing. But as they relate to who they are and sort of the amount of space that they took up. I mean, it's taking up a lot of space. People's heads, people's recollections, people's hearts. Ain't nothing wrong with that, but it's a lot of space. And then when you let it go, that space opens up. And I mean, look, none of us will be 6'8" with 25-inch arms, which was what Hulk Hogan was at the height of his physique and physicality. None of us will ever have that. But at the same time, we all have our own individual myths. We have our own individual archetypes that are here to unfold for us. And it's up to us to understand them and to breathe life into them. And again, from a Jungian perspective, it is what they call individuation. And we all have them. We all have a particular archetype. And so these icons, which are, again, very archetypal, they're going away. And so ultimately, I think it leaves more space for us, right? Other people this is the nature of things. Although some people still talk about Wyatt Earp and Billy the Kid like they were here just yesterday. But it just gives more space for the rest of us to kind of fill in those gaps, right? In our own way. Tell you another major icon. Didn't pass that long ago. Val Kilmer, right? I mean, he's Iceman, right? Is that he is Ice in Top Gun? It's another guy. Very iconic. He was the fucking Lizard King. Jim Morrison. So Jim Morrison dies twice, really. Well, at least I think he dies twice. Unless you can. People say he was Rush Limbaugh or Chevy Chase, something like that. But I think this is ultimately a liberating time. It may be sad, the passing of an age, but it's also, in a lot of ways, connected to this idea of a reset. And that if we're going to be successful in some ways of changing the playing field, if that's even possible, this idea of the reset is going to be a part of that story. And I think with less baggage and less anchors, that we'll be able to do it more creatively and I think more authentically. And you can always go back and listen to the CDs and there's videos on YouTube and these people always live on. But I feel like this is ultimately a good thing and that it's going to clear up some space. And we'll get to have our own iconic moments if that's important to us. Or even, sometimes it's just the way life is, right? Like there was a guy here in Kerrville who rescued 165 people. That guy's a hero, right? That guy's an icon. That guy's an archetype. And sometimes life will choose you for a mission like that. And sometimes it's just how it works. Or sometimes you just continue to work on your craft, whatever your craft is. It could be music, it could be writing, it could be cooking, could be gardening, whatever it is. Like you just continue to work in your craft, and you get better at your craft. And if you get better and better and better at your craft, you begin to embody your craft. And when you embody your craft, guess what? You are beginning to take on archetypal status, right? If you're a writer and you write, it's all you do is write, what's going to happen? You're going to take on the archetypal status of Hermes or the scribe, right? This is the nature of how this works. A couple months ago, I was talking about Hephaestus and the wounded smith as it related to Saturn and Neptune and Aries, right? The wounded smith, the forge of the underworld. And that was my father's archetype. They're these archetypes, they're there. They're everywhere. They're inside of you. And this is one of the things that Jung, we seem to be talking about Jung a lot lately. It's one of those things that Jung would preach about, to find it, right? To find it, to tap into it. Now, there's a danger in that you don't really want to become the archetype, right? Because if you're Dionysus and you're Jim Morrison, you're going to get shredded by the Furies. That's a given. But to be able to tap into that archetypal essence or that archetypal, what's what I'm looking for? I don't want to use the word projection. That's not quite right. Graft. It's like, when you graft a plant together, or the archetypal graft. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And then when you're doing it, you don't even really know it, right? You don't even know it. You're just expressing your authenticity, which is ultimately going to be wrapped around this idea of an archetypal expression. So I think ultimately it's a good thing. And what's going to happen more and more? It's going to be like, oh, I didn't know that person died. I didn't know that person passed away. Because there were a couple of those recently. I'm like, really? I didn't know they passed away. And all of a sudden, we'll look back and go, oh my God, all these other people are gone as well. And it's just the way it is. It's the way of the wheel. But this is an interesting time because these people that are leaving, they're giants, right? Pluto and Leo, the boomers are giants. They put their imprints on everything. And now they're passing on. So standing on the shoulders of giants. All right, let's see. Who do we have here? Go back through this. I look spry today. Well, thank you. The amphetamines are kicking in. Ben Balderson. What's up, brother? Heathen in the house. We got Christina Maria signing. Hi, Christina Maria. Let's see. Liddy Lou, driving to go see the grandkids. That's always fun. So, hey, go and see the grandkids on a new moon in Leo. That is a good new moon experience. Nice job, Liddy. Let's see. What else we have? Sweet Woodruff. Hey, sweets. What's happening? Jean Anonymous. I love that sound. Jean Anonymous. It's like anonymous, but Jean Anonymous. That's very cool. Two icons from Burlington, Vermont, same age range as Ozzy and Hulk passed this week, too. Very well-known folks in town. Musician and entertainer. That train it is a-coming, and it's calling your name. The train it is a-coming. It's the end of that game. Candace may lose. She might. She's the kind of chick that will at least learn. She's a Taurus. She's stubborn. Let's see. Melissa Urban. Hi, Melissa. Good to see you. Good riddance to quite a few icons. I think there's a few more that we could have formal goodbyes with that might be very healthy for us. I'd agree with you, Jay. There's Steve. Thor at the door. Our guy. What's going on, Steve? Good to see you. Symbolic Studies. There he is. Mario. I love Mario. Good to see you, Mario. Oh, he's putting out high quality content. Let's see. We got a good crew here today. Kelly Boyles is here. Hi, Kelly. Susan Gortva. Hi, Susan. Zoracle Dax. Hi, Zoracle. If they hold their nose, they're not good swimmers. I just don't understand that. Just blow out your nose. I think maybe they're trying to keep the devil out. That's what I think. Devil, don't come in. Don't come in, devil. Stay out. It's a very important moment. Actually, blue night. That's what it. Absolutely. All right. Who else we have here? Rock people. Glad I'm not in pain today. Oh boy. Count your blessings. Barbara Boots finally found it. We have no clue what anyone does behind closed doors. I'd agree with you with that. 100%. Sup, guys? Sup? Yeah, if you like, hit that bell. Subscribe. Do you even know if people are honest that they don't really know? Being a Christian is then you can realize that Ozzy Osbourne may in fact be one. I don't know. I've never sat down with the guy. I never sat down with the guy. I never exchanged, beliefs with Ozzy Osbourne. Right? And people are going to give me lyrics to his music just because they look like Christian lyrics. I mean, Michael W. Smith, and who's the other Christian and chick singer if they were together? Turns out they were like full-blown Satanists. And they're singing this Christian music, and you read the lyrics, I'm like, those aren't really Christian lyrics. Right? So I don't know. I haven't sat, the only time you sit down, the only time you really know, you sit down with somebody and they open their hearts and they share what they share. Maybe they demonstrate their Christianity in perhaps a unorthodox way, but I can't tell you if he was a Christian or not. But there are some people who firmly believe that it was all an act and he was really just a Christian. Now, if we're talking about Alice Cooper, that might be a little different. Alice Cooper is actually an ordained minister. And that's what he came from. So he's like the American Ozzy Osbourne, although I do like Alice better. Let's see who else we have here. Baby says he was definitely an arch Zionist, and Sharon is a J. All right, let us clear up Sharon Osbourne's official Jewish status. Sharon Osbourne's father was Don Ardmore, who was a rock impresario who did happen to be Jewish. Now, according to Torah law, for Sharon to be completely Jewish, her mother would have to be Jewish. But according to Sharon, that's not the case. Sharon's mother was some Christian thing, right? Now, you could say that even though, like, Hebraic and Torah law says the mother is the one that passes on the line, she's still getting whatever kind of genetic swap with her father, right? Now, I heard, again, I'm not an expert on the Osbournes, but when they got married, they were married by a rabbi. Now, again, I'm not an expert. This is what I've heard. So would that make Sharon perhaps more Jewish because She got married by a rabbi, her father. I don't know. I don't know. But according to classic Judaic law, she would not be considered Jewish. Unless she converted, in which case she would be. But now she's just a casualty of Ozempic. He cheated a lot. Okay, here we go. He cheated a lot. Now, I've heard this about Ozzy Osbourne, that he was a philanderer. That's what I've heard. Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is, they got different kinds of boundaries. Kind of want to do what they want. That's the nature of Sagittarius. My advice to a woman, if you're involved with the Sagittarian man, just leave the barn door open and eventually he'll come back home. Now, I do know that Sharon also cheated, and she had an affair with Randy Rhoads. I got into the Randy Rhoads thing. It's fucking creepy. The whole Randy Rhoads thing is creepy. Really creepy. And even though it doesn't feel like an overt ritual sacrifice, it kind of feels like a ritual sacrifice. And if I'm not mistaken, Randy Rhoads was also a Sagittarius as well, just like Ozzy. So that whole scene was weird, right? And Randy was coming off of an affair with Sharon when that all happened. That was dark. I remember, again, like that. It's not really part of my scene. I'm like listening to very different music at that time, but I remember hearing about it, and I'm like, this doesn't seem just like a natural death. Knowing what I knew about rock and roll and some of the high strange, and then of course you have Ozzy Osbourne involved. I'm thinking, this just feels like some kind of a weird death ritual. And when you look at it and all the particulars behind it, what was the date on that? When did he die? March 19th. Where does that put us with March 19th? 320. It's right at the end of Pisces. Right? That is like the last freaking degree of the zodiac. That is like the degree of the crucifixion, March 19th. 320, you move into Aries. Talk about a degree. Holy shit. And then Randy Rhoads died at 25. So he's a member of the 27 Club. And he was, again, Sagittarius. Now, the crash, happened 319. The whole story is just weird. Very, very weird. If you follow the story. But I always felt like that was just kind of, that felt evil. The whole rant, and again, so if you don't know what happened, they're I believe in Florida, and they've been driving. Randy Rhoads did not do any drugs. Everybody else is a little three-sheety, right? And the driver of the bus, the tour bus, was having an issue with this woman. She wasn't the manager, but she was on kind of Sharon's side of the management team. And that was his girlfriend. And they were having this massive fight and kind of like getting close to a breakup. And nobody's sleeping, right? Because they're all fucking high on coke, except for Randy. And this guy who's the driver of the bus or the tour bus, he also has his helicopter pilot's license. So he knows somebody in Florida and goes and gets a helicopter. And he starts flying around, where the tour bus is and the area. And he's taking people like up in this helicopter, right? And there was a certain point where he was so high, it was like he was using the helicopter as a projectile to come very close to the RV to scare the shit out of this woman that he was either having to fight with or breaking up with. Now, Randy Rhoads, I guess he was a photographer. Like, he liked to take pictures. So he thought by going up in the helicopter that he would be able to get some good aerial shots. Whatever, Randy. So he gets in there, and that's when things start to get really weird. The guy starts to fly closer and closer to the tour bus. And it's almost like he's trying to scare the shit out of the woman that he's in this conflict with. And people, they get so close, they being Randy Rhoads and the copter pilot, they get so close to the RV that they can actually see the two of them fighting over the control stick for the helicopter. That's how bad this got. And of course, neither of them are able to pull out of one of their dives, and they hit, and the helicopter crashes, and they're done. Right? They're done. But the reason why it kind of feels a bit ritualistic is, number one, it's on 3/19, the very last day of Pisces. Holy shit. That's like it's not quite in 420 range. You're not in like the days of Molech range, but it is that final degree of Pisces. So there's that. It happens in Florida, which is a Pisces state, and it's at the end of Pisces. And you have to take into account the condition of the helicopter pilot, who is just completely coked out of his brain. And what happens when you get in a place like that? You have all these entities that come in and start to fuck with you, and it's like you're invincible. You do stupid shit, probably drinking as well, right? So now you've got a helicopter pilot who's possessed. That to me is like, that's a no-brainer. And then there you go, Randy Rhoads. And it feels very, very ritualistic in that regard. And that's one of those things that kind of, it's a dark cloud that hangs over the head of Ozzy Osbourne and his group for quite a while. And they have like Jake E. Lee and Zach Wilde. I mean, they find really good guitar players. And it's like, are they Randy Rhoads? Probably not. But, ultimately they're able to overcome it. And then soldier on and make a shit ton of money. Ozfest, whatever Sabbath records or Ozzy records come out with Ozzy. But again, it's just, at the end of the day, I was like not moved by the persona. I watched the Osbournes for a little bit. I thought it was moderately funny because he was so pathetic. And I actually liked his relationship with Jack at times. I thought it was, they were like pranksters. I kind of like that. But everything else was like, no. And I gotta be honest, Kelly Osbourne just seems like a bitch. Doesn't she? She just seems like a bitch. He's got kids from another marriage over in England. And his oldest son is a guy by the name of Louis Osbourne, who is a kind of a rave techno DJ, pretty popular. He looks just like him. And then he's got this daughter who is, she looks normal. You remember, so for me, the Osbournes sort of became the reality version of the Addams Family. I mean, that's really what they were. They were like the Addams Family that came to life. Yeah, because Ozzy's, he's kind of a monster, right, in his own way. And the kids are creepy. They're creepy kids. Jack looks a little creepy. Kelly looks a little creepy. Then you've got Sharon, who has this witchy poo energy vibe. I mean, they're like the Addams Family come to real life. That's to me. Now, if you were to go to England and get this one daughter from a previous marriage, she could have played like the normal one, right? Like the normal one. Like, I think I'm getting my families mixed up. Pat Priest played the normal girl on the Monsters. But no, I really feel like that the Osbournes were like the reality version of the Addams Family come to life. So anyway, I'm not sure how much more I have to say about Ozzy Osbourne. I know for some people he was a really important kind of figure. They related to his music. There were messages in there. He probably didn't take himself all that seriously. And for people who don't take themselves that seriously, he's a blue collar guy. He's a blue collar guy. Ozzy Osbourne is a very blue collar. He's not David Byrne, right? He's not Brian Eno. He's not David Bowie. You're not going to get that from Ozzy. He is a working class bloke and kind of a fool. And in some ways, he reminds me of a clown. He reminds me of a clown, like a dark clown. To me, that's his archetype. That's who Ozzy Osbourne is to me, a clown. And I don't mean it in a derogatory sense. I mean it in a archetypal sense. Anyway, Godspeed, Ozzy, wherever you are. I hope it's, if you're not in a good place, well, I hope it resolves itself quickly, whatever that is. Look, for all we know, he could have gone through an eternity already. He's been gone, 2 days? Yeah. Our 2 days could be eons in another dimension, in another time. All right. I think about this. It almost feels like Children of Men. And they had the youngest survivor, the youngest person after they stopped having children, and he died. He was 25 or something like that. And everybody kind of infantilized him, and he had this status for being the youngest person left. And then he dies, right? He dies. And they're just left. They're just left with sort of the imminence of the moment. No hope. There's no reminder of the way things used to be or the way they were. And there's going to be a time when, some of us will go through that. Gen X is going to be the generation that I think is going to go through it the most. When some of the, the Gen X icons, be like, again, not that I'm attached to any of these people, but when Eddie Vedder goes, or who else? I get Keanu Reeves. Like when those people start to go, especially Keanu Reeves, because you think that motherfucker's going to live forever. I'll tell you he's going to live forever. Jared Leto. Jared Leto is going to live forever. All these people are going to die, and Jared Leto will still be there. And he'll still have his island of mediocre women. Have you ever seen his cult on his island? If you haven't seen it, look up Jared Leto Cult Island and take a look at the people in the picture. It's kind of like, and by the way, I am not here to judge. Right. I'm not here to judge another person's form. But Jared Leto has a large assemblage of Miss Lonely Hearts. That's what it feels like. Right. It's not like he's not doing a Dan Bilzerian. Okay. He doesn't have an island of 9s and 10s. And in some ways, I think it's kind of interesting. But you will not see a lot of men. In fact, you may not even see any men in Jared Leto's island cult. But it's all said and done. That little motherfucker, he's still gonna be around, and he's gonna look at about 35 years old. He'll outlast Keanu Reeves. But Gen X, this is gonna be your future, right? These people are they're gonna cycle out, and you're just gonna watch them go. And it's just gonna be like children of men. And the memory, the memories of these people, and some of them are, they're not all bad. They're not all like just soaking up psychic gravy. I mean, some of these individuals are, they've added something. It's funny. I was watching these young baseball players. They might have been about 14, 15 years old, maybe 16 at the most. And they showed them a picture of a baseball player. And this baseball player was around in the early 2000s. And they couldn't even name who he was. And for people that follow baseball, the guy had a pretty recognizable look. His name was Tim Lincecum. And he played for the San Francisco Giants. And he won the Cy Young Award 2 years in a row. Nobody can really remember him, right? So you don't have to die to not be remembered. You just have to not be relevant, which is a form of death on its own, right? But it's going to be a very, I was having this conversation with, I got into this big debate on Twitter about the death of rock. And there were people who were really coming at me with it. No, it's not dead. It's not, yes, it is dead. It's totally dead. Like, it doesn't move the needle anymore. There are 3 genres that are much more popular than rock. Number one, you have to sort of fight it out between country and rap. And then you have pop. You have the Taylor Swifts of the world, Katy Perry's of the world. I mean, these are the 3 genres that are much more relevant to this idea of rock music. I mean, rock was something that was unique unto the time that it was being created. I would even go one step further, and I would say that electronic music might even be slightly ahead of rock now. And there are all these people who just have this hill that they want to die on. And it's like, you don't know what's going on. Your taste is limited. And I'm like, okay, let's numbers matter. Okay. Numbers fucking matter. They matter. And if you go back and let's go to say 1960s, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band sells a lot of records. right? Like it's a really successful breakthrough and kind of experimental pop music, psychedelic stuff, but it sells a lot of records. So you have something that is both critically acclaimed and the numbers back it up, right? So the Beatles basically established this new standard, and that you can be artistically intact, creatively intact, and still sell a shit ton of records. Numbers matter, right? Okay. And and we could go even a little bit further. Let's go into the 1970s. 1970. We'll go 1975. Physical Graffiti, Led Zeppelin, sells a lot of records. A lot of records. And it's critically acclaimed. Now, if you go back from where we are now, and you go back to the first Black Sabbath album, which is, I think, 1971, 1970, 71. Let's keep that in mind. Go 5 years forward, you're running the Physical Graffiti. There were swing bands that were around. Like Woody Herman and the Thundering Herd, were still touring. And they would still put out, live from Carnegie Hall or whatever, right? Or they may put out some kind of studio record. There were swing bands that were still around. But it didn't mean that swing music moved the needle. It's like, yeah, it's here, but it's not relevant anymore. And it was just fascinating how people just couldn't understand that. And it's numbers matter. Numbers is, well, you're being very Apollonian. I'm like, no, I can be Dionysian if I want to, but if you go back and look at how the record game was played, you would have let's say a Michael Jackson record. We'll use Michael Jackson, and maybe something like Bad, which is okay. It's an okay record, right? It's an okay record. It's not as good as Thriller. It's an okay, but he's going to sell a shit ton of copies of Bad, right? Shit ton. Or let's say, Aretha Franklin was hot there for Whitney Houston. We'll use Whitney Houston. Here's another example. Whitney Houston sells a shit ton of records. Well, what do you think they do with the money from that record? They're able to go invest it and pay other bands and other artists that are not as successful as Whitney Houston. And they could take chances on, like the Talking Heads, right? So I think, were they on Arista? Anyway, it's taking a chance on a band. Well, we made all this money on this Mariah Carey record or this Whitney Houston record. Then we could spread it around a little bit. Same thing with Michael Jackson, right? So people don't understand that, right? Like those numbers meant something because it allowed them to branch off and have other artists and other albums that they would not normally be able to pay for, but these marquee artists would help. But people are just like, you don't get it. It's Dionysian. And, well, okay, let's go into the Dionysian world. Jim Morrison was Dionysian. When was the last time you saw fucking Jim Morrison around? Anybody? Anybody see Lizard King? Like who's the person that moves the needle now culturally? It is not a Jim Morrison who's like Dionysian and dangerous and all the things that we expect with quote unquote rock and roll. It's not him. It is not him. It's Taylor Swift. She is the one. She is the needle mover, but she's not Dionysian. Not even the least. Right? And so to be able to say, and I appreciate what this guy's saying or trying to say, like, the spirit is, well, the spirit may be there, but it's not the music they play at NFL games, NBA games, right? They don't play it. You could take every single independent rock band right now, everyone in the United States, and you could take them and get their tour receipts. When I say independent, like maybe they've got a couple records out, indie label, whatever. You can take them all. Take them all. And put them all on tour. And I guarantee you could have all the people that went to all the shows on all their tour dates, and they'll still be a distant second to Luke Bryan. That's what I'm talking about. Right? That's what I'm. And who is Luke Bryan? And who are these country west? They're all generic to me. I mean, I saw these three guys. They're sitting down, they're all from Nashville, playing music, and they're talking about the SEC coming up this season. And, I'm an LSU guy. I'm an LSU. Well, I'm waiting for my Auburn Tigers to come back. These are the discussions that they're having, right? Like this is, and I get it. Like, it's cool. It's family. It's football. It's America. It ain't dangerous. Those guys are not Dionysian. They're not. Country West music is not Dionysian. It's all about conformity and fun, and drinking. You get a little crazy, but it's not too crazy. Now, some country west lyrics are good. I do enjoy some of them, but it's not the same. So this is what the people just want to defend their positions and die on their hill. That's fine. I get it. But when you have a logical discussion about it, he finally got it. The guy, to his credit. And he sent me this he wrote this thing on Graham Hancock's site. This big, long dissertation on music and lyrics and the Dionysian component and the lunar effect and all this stuff. I'm like, man, it's really impressive. It's an impressive fucking article you got there. And at the end of the day, there's no Jim Morrison. Sorry, it's just the way it goes. And he finally got it. So the icon part isn't just related to music. There's movie icons. We're going to lose Jack Nicholson. How long does Clint Eastwood have? A lot of people can't wait till Robert De Niro goes. All these guys are going to go away. Within the next 10 years, they'll either be dead or they'll be in some kind of a care facility, and then you just won't see them. Or they're just going to literally disappear. And what's going to be our frame of reference from that point moving forward? It's going to be very interesting. There are children right now who are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 who will have absolutely zero clue about any of the things that we're talking about. And I don't know if it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. It's a good thing maybe because they'll be able to kind of recreate the world on their own. Is it a bad thing in that they won't have any sense of context and history? I don't know. But I do know that we're approaching this event horizon where all these memories and all these people and all of the baggage to some extent, the attachments, they're all going to go. They're all going to go. It's going to be very weird. It's going to be very, very weird because it's almost like the passing of a personal age for many of us. Because there's no sense of succession. And that's the other thing. Like when you let's look at the world of acting, which I think you could probably By the way, the more I keep watching these videos on YouTube about like old Hollywood, God, they were fucking just out of control, man. Like their sex lives were out of fucking control. Apparently, Lana Turner, I just heard this. Lana Turner had to have sex at least 12 times a day. That's like nymphomaniac territory. 12 times a day. Lana Turner. It's a lot. Anyway, but you can look at Hollywood. There's a star system, right? Like, you go from, I don't know, Humphrey Bogart and sort of that era. There's a period before Humphrey Bogart, obviously, but he's like a modern actor that a lot of people can, semi-modern, that a lot of people can relate to. Katharine Hepburn, blah, 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 blah. And you begin to move forward. You pick up a little Cary Grant along the way, right? And then, you get a little, eventually you get like some Rock Hudson, and I'm leaving out a lot of other actors. But these are actors that are kind of iconic. And there's like a new generation that comes in. Eventually you run into like Paul Newman. You've got the method actors. Clint Eastwood comes along, Paul Newman comes along, Steve McQueen comes along, James Coburn, and you could go all the way back to like, W.C. Fields and William Powell. It's all part of a continuum. And then after you get to like, the Newmans and the Eastwoods, you're starting to kind of, morph into like younger actors, but not quite like, whatchamacallit, the Brat Pack, but people like Willem Dafoe. Dafoe is probably in his early 70s, so he's somewhere between the old school and the new school of actors. And who else would be in there? What's his name? Christopher Walken. Like there's this kind of newer wave of actors that are coming through. But they still wind up being very, very popular and very iconic and become part of this whole continuum. Then you get into like the Keanu Reeveses and the Brad Pitts, the Johnny Depps and the Sean Penns. They're all part of it, right? Robert Downey Jr.'s, they're all part of it. Now, they may not have the same cachet as Humphrey Bogart or Gary Cooper or whoever, right? John Wayne. But it's all part of a continuum. And the continuum continues to sort of pump out the stars, and then it starts to stop. And now Hollywood is dead, and we're looking around. It's like, how many times do we have to see that Sebastian dude, the guy with the mustache? He's everywhere now. Like that guy's everywhere. Like, is that it? Is that the new face? How many? It's like they can't get him into enough fucking movies because he kind of looks a little bit like a movie star. Like he has some gravitas. He's older, but it's like, okay, so now you're a new Gladiator. Now you're doing a Corona commercial. Now you're in The Best of Us, whatever the fuck that AMC show is, and then you're in it just doesn't work. They keep recycling the same guy because there's nobody else, and then you have these kid actors. It's just the end, man. It's the end of a continuum. I'm telling you, in the star system, it is the end of the continuum, and to me, you can see this, and maybe it's because I'm not paying attention, but you can see this kind of across the board with all these other platforms. Like I'm a big sports guy, or at least I was, and my favorite sport was baseball. Now I couldn't name you 30 Major League Baseball players. And even if I wanted to, it wouldn't be that hard. Even if I wanted to go in and kind of memorize their names, look at their stats, and see who they play for. It just doesn't feel like it would stick. You know what I mean? Like there's no tacky component to it. There just isn't. And maybe there are people that are really, really into baseball or really into sport, but I find that this is happening kind of across the entire playing field. That there's less and less of that sticky, tacky, gummy stuff that connects us to these cultural kinds of pockets, expressions, icons. It's just not there. Where I'll turn on a brief segment about Justin Fields hurting his foot for the New York Jets, and there's some woman who's been covering the Jets for like 7 years or something, right? And she's there talking about it like she's part of their. I don't know who the fuck this woman is. I've never seen her before. And this is happening across all these different media platforms. All these pod people are just showing up. Some of them have been athletes, but again, there's this guy Harry Douglas. He's a football commentator. I remember when Harry Douglas played football. Had him on my fantasy team a couple times. He was nothing special. He was one of those guys man, he could be good if he stays healthy, but he really stayed healthy. And now he's got a broadcasting gig. But does he move the needle? No, Harry Douglas doesn't move the fucking needle. And this is kind of where we are now. It's like the whole icon thing. Let's just keep kind of rolling with it, right? The whole icon thing is being played out on a political level. I mean, really, if you want to be, honest about it, these are where the new icons are. For now, these are the brands. You got the Obama brand, you got the Hillary brand, you got the Clinton brand, Bill, you got the Trump brand, you got the Macron brand. I mean, this is the last bastion of that sticky, gummy, tacky traction with these personalities and with these archetypes, right? And they're going to go. They're going to go too. Someday, Donald Trump will be gone. He'll be gone. Hillary will be gone. Bill Clinton will be gone. All these people will be gone. Benjamin Netanyahu will be gone. And so what's going to be there to take their place? Are they going to, is AOC ready to step up and become an icon? Is Ilhan Omar going to step up and become an icon? I really don't think so. I don't think there's again, a lot of these people, Pluto and Leo, Booberville. I just don't think, you look at the bench, right? There's not a lot of talent there may be talent, but not talent in that regard. Not talent in the sense that here are these people, we're going to promote them, we're going to turn them into media icons, we're going to turn them into political icons, and for better or worse, they're going to shape culture in this weird interface between politics, power, and entertainment. Because that's where it's all gone. Politics, power, and entertainment. Who needs Hollywood when you got this? Right? But they'll go away too. Eventually. I mean, it took Henry Kissinger 100 years, but you know what? He's gone. And so I guess my premise is that all these other areas, I remember I used to hang out with this guy, Gordon Davidson. I like Gordon. He was the head of this community called Sirius, SIRIUS. And I went there when I was 24, traveling around. And Gordon had a pretty good esoteric background. And he said that in terms of change, that the last body that would experience change. It was always the political body because it was the most dense. And it made a lot of sense to me at the time. I mean, I get this, right? Like, music, you can experience all these different genres and changes. And like there are other areas of life where, like even just look at food, right? How crazy, in a good way, food has changed in the last 40 years. But politics is really dense. There's a density to it. There's a corruption to it. There's a heavy gravity to it. And you could talk about politics and spirit, but it has to be couched in religion. And it has to be couched in some sort of a Christian religion. But you can't really talk about politics and consciousness, and you can't have those discussions. You should be able to, but you can't, right? Because it's so polarized and whatever. But Gordon's right in that if the final area where change takes place is politics, because it's all so dense, it's also kind of a byproduct of the density of the personalities who are sort of the modern assemblage of politicians. That is the density. And once they are gone, and they will be gone, trust me, they will be gone. That's going to be a very, very interesting story. Like, whatever you think of Trump, there are people who will die for him. They will. They'll die for him. Would they die for Eric Trump? I don't think so. Would they die for Donald Trump Jr.? I don't think so. Would they die for J.D. Vance? I don't think so. And again, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just telling you, there are people that would die for Donald Trump. And I just don't see anybody on the horizon that would generate that kind of either devotion or attachment or attention to who that person is. So this is a different group of icons. And when they go, this world will be a very, very different place. We're about a decade out, unless we have some kind of a cataclysm or some kind of a massive third world war, starvation, or whatever. We're about 10 years out from the natural course of events taking place. And there just won't be these people around anymore. There just won't. And what happens to like their trusts and their foundations? Well, let's take a look at the Bushes. Do you think George Bush Jr.'s two little dingbat daughters are ready to take that thing over and power glide it into the 21st century? I don't think so. Right? When Bill and Hillary Clinton go, is Chelsea going to be the commander, of that foundation? And is she going to have the charisma and the personality and all those things to, keep? No, not at all. Even Trump's kids, maybe Ivanka, but she's done. She's done. She's a Chabad mom now. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're everything that's happening with these stars, it's a precursor to what's coming. And within 10 years, they'll almost all be gone. Right? They'll almost all be gone. Sean Penn will be 75 years old. You think he looks old now? Wait till you see him at 75. He's going to look like one of those dried up, shrunken ETs that they used to parade around, New Mexico, right? That's how Sean Penn's going to look. But of course, Jared Leto will still be looking about 35 and rocking a whole new wave of very mid women on his island. I mean, I think it's a good thing. Is it sad? Sure. I mean, every now and then you're going to run across somebody. Like I was thinking today, who would die or pass that I would have some feeling about. And they're not people you would think that would move other people's. Like if Stanley Clarke passed away, I would have some feelings about it because he's a great bass player, great musician, seemed like a great guy. If Stanley Clarke passed away, I'd have some feelings about it. And there are others, but they're not going to be anybody really recognizable or, completely noticeable. But yeah, it's funny. I was hanging out at the boat the other night. It was really a trip. I was talking to the Gen Z bartenders. These gals, they were interesting to say the least. And Jim Carroll, People Who Died, came on. There's just, they're whatever kind of XM radio, whatever that was like. And I thought to myself, oh man, it's such a fucking good song. Those are people who died. And I realized nobody in the restaurant knew what the fuck that song was about. They knew who sang it. They didn't have any context at all until some old geezer walked in here and he goes, those are people who died. Those are people who died. He gets it. And I said to the bartender, I said, you know Leonardo DiCaprio? Oh, yeah. So well, he played this guy, Jim Carroll, who's singing the song. And it was a movie called The Basketball Diaries. You ever heard about it? No. Oh. But you've heard of Leonardo DiCaprio? Yeah. And it was so weird, right? And, a friend of the show was texting me about somebody who they knew who had gotten jabbed, and it looks like they're on their way out, right? At that moment, Jim Carroll comes on. And he's got this whole list of names. And if you read the book, The Basketball Diaries, you'll recognize the names because they're in the book. And that's kind of where we are now. You can just swap out all those names and bring in a whole new set of names. And it really feels like it's the end. Right? Like, because all the continuum, there's no continuum. And there's no continuum with Hollywood. Nope. There's no continuum with music. Nope. And even with sports, it's like nameless, faceless players. College basketball, nobody knows the fuck plays college basketball anymore. Nobody. 15 years ago, their names were on pictures, Sport Magazine, Sporting News, Sports Illustrated. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's time we move past all of this. And maybe this is what the death of the age of icons is all about. And that we get to find ourselves and define ourselves in a place without any historical baggage. But on the other hand, there are people who are also very much engaged in social engineering, and they can make up any story about the past. Or they can just round you up and put you in a sanitarium because you remembered the way the world was. And everybody else around you thinks you're crazy. All right, let's talk a little bit about Candace Owens. So I've been watching this thing with her and Macron and Macron's wife. And so Candace is taking all of her information from a book that was published by a French journalist. So she has this ongoing relationship with this French. You can buy this book. You can get it, I believe, in France. I don't know if there's an English translation. But everything that she talks about is referencing this book. Now, I don't know how that winds up impacting the case, whether or not the court in Delaware will disallow it. I don't know how they're gonna basically what they want to do is they want to get her to spend as much money as she can to defend herself and bleed her out. Year, 2, 3 years, right? And she's now 10, 15, 20, 25 million. Like they want their pound of flesh for Candace talking shit about Brigitte Macron. Now, there was a guy who was, he's the lawyer. He's filed the case here in the United States, Delaware, and he was on with Jake Tapper. And I'm going to paraphrase what he said. He's talking about Candace. He's talking about the case. He's talking about all the things related to it. And he used a word 3 times. He used the same word 3 times when he was talking about Candace spreading disinformation. And the word he used was metastasized. I thought, this is really interesting. Like using it one time, I understand the context. I get it. Right? It's like you say something and then it blows up and it metastasizes. Get it. He had to make the point 2 other times. Could he have used a different word besides metastasize? I think maybe, but that's not what he chose to do. He chose to use the word metastasize 3 times. I'm like, what kind of signal is this guy trying to send? Is there some kind of a deeper message here that he's sending to Candace Owens that she's not picking up? Right? Because metastasize has to do with cancer. And everybody thinks he's talking about the accusations. Maybe he's giving Candace some kind of a warning. And this metastasize, usually when you say things 3 times, right, it has a powerful incantation-like effect. And I listened to it. Used it 3 times, metastasize. Is he telling Candace Owens something that she may need to hear? If somehow Candace Owens comes down with a form of cancer, just remember, you heard it here first. The guy used the word metastasize 3 times, almost like a spell. I thought it was interesting. Not interesting in a good way, by the way, but interesting. A lot of people think she's going to lose. It all depends on what they allow and the discovery. So Candace also was named in this other suit with what's her name, Blake Lively, and Ryan Reynolds. So she's got this whole other thing going on too. So Candace is now juggling 2 court cases about what she's bringing up on her show. Now, in the Blake Lively case, they've asked for discovery for every single email Candace has. And I'm not sure if she's obligated to do that. Now, what happens if Macron's people ask that, we want every single email Candace has. That's part of her discovery. It'll be interesting. It will definitely be interesting. Look, I hope she takes him down. I hope she takes him down. I'd like to see a version of David versus Goliath. Although over the years I've changed. I wish Goliath would have won. But in this case, I'd like to see these fucking people get taken down. Who wouldn't? And you guys know who David Nino Rodriguez is? I follow him on Twitter. And he was bitching at Candace. Oh, leave him alone. This isn't cool. She's not a man. Like, he's going on and on. He said, there's much bigger things. Why don't you jump in and get involved with us and, help us take down Obama? And I'm like, what gives you the right to tell her what she can or cannot investigate? I'm like, does she come over to your feed and tell you to stop posting the 2 more weeks lockdowns and warrants and arrest slop that you're always posting over here and that everybody keeps waiting for? No, she doesn't. So why should you tell her what she can and cannot do? Right? Do your thing, man. Go do you, Nino. You've got your own thing. This is her thing. Leave her alone. And I just found that to be really weird, right? And it's like I had to ask myself, is this incumbent upon MAGA type people? Right? Is this incumbent upon hardcore MAGA? It's like, let's lasso you in. Let's lasso you in and bring you over here because what you're doing is irrelevant and it's not cool. But if you help us, well, that'd be a real cool thing. I was like, again, it feels kind of culty. Like, she's doing something different. It's outside of your cult, dude. Let her do it. But no, here's what we'll do. We'll make her feel bad, or try to. We'll make her feel bad. We won't ostracize her, but we'll kind of make an example out of her. And if enough people do, well, then she's going to have to join up with other people so that she doesn't feel like she's left out in the cold. And now she's got community, common foe, and ho, here we go. I just felt like it was like way too controlling. Let her just fucking, let Candace cook or let her get sued or whatever. Just, you don't have to go in and try to regulate her research or what she's putting her time towards. You agree with that? Do you agree with that? Let her be. Anyway, if I had to make it a bet, intuitively, I think she's going to win. That's just my intuition. Do I hope she wins? Of course. But I think, now it may not look like she's going to win in a sense where, yes, Candace Owens is right. Brigitte Macron is a biological male who became a female. I don't think it's going to look like that. It'll be a different kind of win, right? It'll be some kind of a backwards win or a sideways win. And that's what I think is going to happen. Hung jury or, they'll find something where it's like, yeah, sorry, you're not liable for these damages because we don't see it. Now, it will, and that will be a win, right? But I don't think it's going to be everything is proved in court law and Macron is exposed. But it's more like instead of Candace winning, the other side loses. Do you understand? Do you get what I'm saying? That's what I think is going to happen. And then Candace, she may be able to take some victory laps around that. Who knows? But that's what I think is going to go down. Okay, that's it. We're out of here. I was going to do some calls, but I'm sort of out of it. I'm on the rebound. I'm on the mend. This South Node Mars thing has been really draining the batteries. Really draining the batteries. But we're on the mend here. All right. Thanks for being here. We'll be back on Sunday night. I was going to have my guy Crypto Q on today, and he's a West Coaster, and 10 o'clock his time is really pushing it. So I'm going to have him come on the Sunday night show. And he's been just absolutely cooking with the numbers around Ozzy Osbourne. And it's like, wow. So he'll come on Sunday night, and we'll do about an hour of deep decode with Crypto K. And then, yeah, I think it'll be good. And well, of course, there's plenty to talk about astrologically. So join us here on Sunday night. You can always purchase yours truly a cup of coffee. You can like, subscribe. You can support True Hemp Science, our sponsor, our great sponsor. Type in 15MINS and you will get a goodie bag with your purchase of $100 or more. And if you're interested, you can also get an astrological reading from me. That's it. All right. Take care, everybody. God bless. Love you all. Bye for now.